James Gunn just announced the sequel to Superman, and there's a huge tease in this announcement that makes me think that pretty soon we could see the Justice League fighting the Legion of Doom, a team up of supervillains that we have never seen before in a major comic book movie. Welcome back, ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy. Oh boy, this is exciting. James Gunn just confirmed that the next movie in Superman's story is called Man of Tomorrow, and he also accompanied this on an Instagram post with art by the great Jim Lee depicting Superman next to Lex Luthor, with Lex Luthor wearing his warsuit from the comics. So we're going to break down what this image means, all of the other artists that are suddenly posting original art of this suit, and how this could tie into Brainiac, and why we think this is setting up the Legion of Doom. And later I'm going to be joined by our own Lee Mazzio and Dodson Sites, who are going to explain exactly what the heck is happening here. By the way, don't forget to come see us live at our New York City Comic Con show at City Winery, October 10th. Ticket links are below in the description. So first, here's what we know. Obviously, the movie Superman was great, and it's the first film in James Gunn's interconnected cinematic universe, which expanded with Creature Commandos and Peacemaker Season 2. Now, that film actually grossed less money than Man of Steel, but it's still the highest grossing superhero movie of the year. We also know that the spin-off movie, Supergirl, is releasing next year, and there's a horror film about Clayface, the Batman villain, releasing next fall with a script from Mike Flanagan. Now, usually the Batman movies are the ones that are fast-tracked while Superman gets lodged in development hell. But Gunn said last month that he already had a treatment for this movie, and now we have a release date, July 9th, 2027, and we can assume that it's going to feature Lex's warsuit. What's a warsuit? Well, so for decades in the comics, Lex Luthor was a scheming scientist who was never like a one-on-one physical match for Superman. You know, similar to what we saw in the movie.
Not today, then tomorrow.
But then, in 1984's Action Comics 544, he invented this warsuit that made him more of a physical match for the Man of Steel. Now, the suit was popular in part because it was part of the Superpowers action figure collection. And I should note that this is very much the era where James Gunn started to read comics, and that's why so much of his DC is based on these fantastical elements. Now, that version of Lex, the mad scientist with the warsuit, was wiped away in the 1986 comic Man of Steel. Writer-artist John Byrne reimagined Lex as a billionaire who wasn't publicly a supervillain, and that is the version that we started with in Superman. But the movie ended with Lex being outed as a traitor and arrested.
Get his bald ass to Bell Reed.
Now, that last line is key because they loudly proclaim exactly where Lex Luthor is going. The prison for superpowered individuals that was the origin place for the Creature Commandos and Suicide Squad. And we also know that Amanda Waller is set to have her own series where we have speculated she could recruit Lex to build some weaponry for the US government. And this could lead into how Lex builds this warsuit. And it's also a perfect progression for his character. I mean, think about it. Lex should have won. He outsmarted Superman at every turn. He tarnished his reputation, but he physically could not beat him without a proxy.
1A! 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 1A!
So I think Lex would devote his life to cutting out the middleman and being able to beat up Superman himself, hence the warsuit. But this is just the beginning. This reveal tells us so much more about this movie.
Oh, hey, are you guys still selling gum?
Actually, no, we despise gum here and we will never sell it.
Oh, man, I need that gum real bad. See, I got this bad habit that I'm trying to quit, and, well, I gotta try something.
Oh, I see. You're on the gum. Yeah, I know exactly how you feel, actually. I have this really bad oral fixation habit because of anxiety. And every time I tried to quit, I would end up doing this weird thing where I'd clench my jaw and I'd squish my face. But like I said, I hate gum, and I found another way to change my habit. In fact, I think you should try this. It's called Fume Zero. So this is a single-use flavored air device with zero nicotine, zero vapor, and zero batteries. It is not a vape, it is something totally different. There's no smoke, no charging, just pure flavored air and a satisfying fidget feel. And get this, it is just $24.99, which is probably a lot cheaper than the bad habit you're trying to change.
Wow, that's a good bargain.
Now this flavor is called Crisp Mint, and it tastes a lot better than the disgusting sugar rubber that you came in here to buy. And it's designed to be simple. Pick it up, draw it in, and taste. No setup, no recharging. See, Fume Zero is perfect for oral fixation, fidgeting, or anxiety, and it has this really fun chewable mouthpiece.
That's my favorite part.
And you can choose from 6 flavors: Crisp Mint, Peach Blush, Raspberry, Mango, Orange Vanilla, Spearmint Ice, and each one delivers more than 10 days of peak flavor. And because it's just $24.99, it's easy to try and see if Fume works for you. Fume has already helped more than 500,000 people make their change, and Zero is their most accessible option yet. So I highly recommend you try flavored air as a satisfying, affordable alternative to change your lifestyle. You can try it right now at tryfume.com/product/Fume0, scan this QR code, or click the link below. Now, back to what I was saying. Now, the title, Man of Tomorrow, is one of Superman's many nicknames. It's also the title of a great Superman comic called Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow by Alan Moore and Kurt Swan. And that comic was one of the inspirations for the tone of Gunn's movies. So those two issues are kind of a last adventure of the original Superman story, detailing how Lex Luthor and Brainiac combined into one being to finally kill the Man of Steel. Kind of. It's really good. You should read it. But there's also a 1995 comic called Superman Man of Tomorrow, which features the reappearance of Lex Luthor after he was revealed as a villain and went into a coma in Action Comics 701, which in this case could be, Luthor returning from Belle Reve. The comic also features Luthor teaming up with Joker and also the classic Superman villain, the Parasite. Now, Parasite attracts Metropolis and tries to suck all the energy out of the city, but the main villain is Luthor, who continues to manipulate Superman to turn public opinion against him. Lex even creates Superman lookalike robots to smash up Metropolis, and the Justice League have to stop the rampage. Now, we could see elements of that in this movie, particularly that secondary villain. Superman has a strong rogues gallery, but every movie has either featured Lex or Zod, or for some reason Richard Pryor as the main villain. And I would love to instead see Parasite or Brainiac. Both of them would fit into this more fantastical world that Gunn is creating. But I think that he might be holding back just a bit on Brainiac. You see, a more supervillain-esque Luthor opens up the door for the Legion of Doom, a coterie of villains that are a counterweight to the Justice League. I have been dying to see a supervillain team-up movie. It seems like a natural fit for these films. I mean, hell, we got two teams of superheroes fighting each other before a team of villains. And I think that title, Man of Tomorrow, is a big hint that we could have a Lex Luthor Brainiac team-up, either in this film or setting them up to combine into one being in the Justice League of America movie. Now, look, I could go on rambling, but I want to talk to Lee Mazzio and Dodd about this news and the other Man of Tomorrow comic they could be adapting here. So, Lee and Dodd, thanks for coming on, guys. I really appreciate it. Lee, tell me about this other Man of Tomorrow comic they could be adapting here.
Yeah, for sure. So in 2020, there was a digital comic release that tied into the 2020 movie of the same name. And that was more so focused on Parasite, Lobo, a little bit of Lex and Superman towards the end, but mostly Parasite, Lobo, and Martian Manhunter, which is kind of why I feel like they might be doing this one.
So this comic, there was an animated movie called Man of Tomorrow that actually spawned a bunch of animated movies called the Tomorrowverse. Same story?
Yeah, same story. Yeah.
Okay. So what's the break? So you think Martian Manhunter's tied into it?
I hope so. Yeah, so in that story, Martian Manhunter comes in, he's searching for... The way they do it in that is Clark doesn't know yet about his Kryptonian heritage, and Martian Manhunter is the one that tells him. What I think could happen...
that's cool.
It is really cool. He visits the Kent's farm.
Wait, did this come after Birthright? Did I read that somewhere?
Yeah, this was inspired by Birthright.
Got it. So Birthright reintroduced Superman's origin, kind of retold. There's like the new version of John Byrne's Man of Steel. Yep. Okay, cool. Continue.
Yeah, so in this one, Martian Manhunter tells him all about his Kryptonian heritage. I think they're tying it in because they've had a lot of little Martian Easter eggs, kind of. Lex mentions it in Superman. They also have an ad for Choco's cookies, which are Martian Manhunter's favorite cookies.
The upcoming Peacemaker episode has a mention of Martians.
Yeah.
I just want to catch everybody up. So the Martian Manhunter is a founding member of the Justice League. He's one of my favorite characters in DC Comics. He is this dude he's the last survivor of his race. There was a Martian genocide, kind of. It's a long story. But he's got a great array of powers, a vulnerability to fire, which isn't great. But he's somebody who is struggling to fit in with humanity, and he can shapeshift and look like them, but he at his core knows that he is not them. So they did kind of feature him in the Snyder movies. He was in the Justice League, the Snyder Cut version. Go ahead, Lee, sorry.
Yeah, no, and so I feel like the way that they could tie this in would be same kind of thing of telling Clark about his Kryptonian heritage, but actually his actual Kryptonian heritage and not what we saw in Superman 2025, because I still don't believe...
No,
Ryan,
they're not going to retcon that.
It's not even. There is a little tagline.
No.
I'm with Ryan on this. I think that Gunn is standing strong in this. I think that he feels that was one of the kind of storytelling risks that he was taking with Superman, and I think he's gonna stick with it. Now, I do think Martian Manhunter does offer a really interesting parallel to Superman, because as you were saying before, he's one of those alien creatures who knows he's alien, or that's kind of like the discovery that he finds at the end of it, is that like he's not a human. And so like the fact that he's like a shapeshifter who literally chooses to look at like not even really like his full form, but just like enough human to look alien, right? I think is a really interesting parallel to Superman. So I think that there's still like a lot that like Martian Manhunter could offer Superman without necessarily retconning the origin of it. I think he could offer also a way of like showing how his culture is something that he rejected. John Jones, right? Martian Manhunter in this case, right? And so that like, in a way that could relate to Superman's struggle with like your culture or what you were supposed to do here. You don't have to do that. You can define that to be your own kind of thing, just like he's doing. So I think there's still a lot that they could play with without necessarily changing that.
I'm just a hater of it, so
I know you don't like it, but it's there and you got to deal with it. The movie's perfect in every other way, but you're the guy who hates the Nolan movie, so who even knows what your opinion counts for in these conversations? So what is the plot of the Man of Tomorrow animated series?
Yeah, so with that, so with that, it starts with Clark is going to Star Labs to see a new telescope that they're creating, and Parasite, Rudy Jones, gets in contact with, long story short, Lobo is going after Clark, finds out about Kryptonians. This is before Kara is in the
and
zeitgeist.
Lobo is the space biker who's going to be played by Jason Momoa in the Supergirl movie.
Yes.
Yeah, which we're all excited for.
And so during that whole unveiling of the telescope, Lobo comes, throws a grenade, it explodes. Rudy Jones gets infected with the parasite, and he is out of commission for a bit. Martian
so it's an
Manhunter's
origin story for Parasite.
Yes.
Very
It's kind
cool.
of like a reimagining for a few characters, but same type of personality and characteristics that we know of. And so Martian Manhunter and Clark go up against Lobo, defeat Lobo for now. Parasite is kind of out of commission for a bit before he learns about his life-absorbing powers. After all of that, Clark actually breaks Lex out of prison to help with Parasite. And the reason why I feel that this might be the inspiration for it is because in that Jim Lee art we saw James Gunn post. Lex is in his warsuit. Clark is holding a screwdriver, though. So it almost seems like they must be doing a sort of, not friendly arc, but working together for whatever bigger villain is out there. And then in the Man of Tomorrow movie, Luthor eventually backstabs Clark, tries to kill him at the end. But
which would explain the fighting arc that we've seen as well. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But like you said, Martian Manhunter, his fire vulnerability does take him out for a little bit, comes back and saves Clark at the end. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a really great movie.
Yeah, but Martian Manhunter, he can also shapeshift. He's telepathic. He can turn invisible. He's a great character. I mean, he's a fantastic character. Dodd, what do you think? You've been really patient and quiet. Well, he's an idiot. What are your thoughts on this reveal?
I'm excited for all the ingredients that James Gunn has put together. Even if it's not even a standalone Lobo movie, just knowing that Lobo's in the background here and could get his introduction here. I think he's going to get more of an introduction in Supergirl from what my understanding of it. But if they're still playing around with it with like the Man of Tomorrow storyline, I mean, like there's not a character conceptually that I can think of that is more James Gunn coded than Lobo. So like just getting able to see that on screen, I think is enough to get me excited. The I could see a lot of potential with the Parasite storyline, especially if Lobo's involved too, interacting with Martian Manhunter, because then you have this mix of different, like the same kind of like xenophobic elements that Superman was kind of debating in the first movie. You have that now with like a mixed bag of aliens, like a good group, like a bad group of aliens, and then a good group of aliens, and then kind of showing that holistically. And there's a lot that he could play around with there that, he delivered on so well in the first one. I think that the timeline seems super tight to me. From what they say, like 2027.
Yeah, but he said he's already got the treatment written, and the guy can write a script really fast. I mean, I think once he has his beats outlined, but you're right, though. I really hope that it's not turning into, we got to get this out so we can meet the Justice League deadline that's looming in 2029 or 30 or whatever. God, 2030, that's nuts to think about, but it's not that far away.
He's been so creator driven that I have confidence that that's the case, right? That he's going to like try to put the work first. but like it is giving me a little bit of MCU flashbacks that I don't know if
Well, but James Gunn is, I mean, he hasn't announced this, but he's definitely going to be the person who writes
right.
the Justice League. I don't think,
Right.
from what I've seen so far, I don't think he's taking pitches on that particular, I don't think.
Yeah.
Assuming they're doing the Justice League. Lee, what were you about to say?
Just with that, I mean, I kind of trust the process, especially because there have been movies that were announced, like Brave and the Bold, for example, although we don't know if that's the script that they've saw 3 times and decided to cancel it. I feel like the amount of focus that Gunn is putting on making sure the script is exactly the way they want it makes me a little bit more confident for the timeline. And I mean, as a DC fan, I used to pray for years like this where it would be Superman, Supergirl, and a super family movie within 3 years.
Right.
So no complaints.
And you may still see the super family in this too. And I love the idea of Lex ending the movie with a heel turn. So I talked about this earlier, but I want to get both of your thoughts on this. Don, what do you think about the idea of the Legion of Doom? Now, on the one hand, it sounds great. There have been some great stories. Hell, when Grant Morrison did it, it led into Darkseid and the animated universe. It was fantastic. It does seem like a lot of characters for a movie. So are you going to throw cold water on this, or do you think we're going to get Legion of Doom?
Legion of Doom is, I think, one of the most exciting ideas to see come alive on screen, because I don't think we've really gotten that as like a build up for a villain. We've had these like big multiversal villains, like this one big bad kind of thing. And like DC villains is why I love DC more than anything else. The Rogues Gallery is always the best. Like I was thinking the other day just about like Reverse Flash and all the intricacies that go into his character when on paper he's just bad Flash, you know? And how they make those characters, seeing all of those characters, if done right, if given the James Gunn treatment, come together and form a plan and kind of create that inverse, that could be something that we haven't really seen before. So I am really excited at the possibility. The caveat of that, though, is they've got to get every single villain right, especially if they're like a founding member of the Legion of Doom, right? Especially like Reverse Flash is a perfect example of one that I just said, right? If they're going to have that, if they're going to have him in the Justice League or Legion of Doom, he can't be a plot device to go back in time and nothing more, right? Like he's got to be something significant to that character. And I think that we need to have them really mirror the parallels that we see in the Justice League, right? Like they can work together when the Justice League's fractured and the inverse happening. And I think that there's a lot of storytelling potential in that. So absolutely, I would love to see the Legion of Doom start to come together. And I think that you know, starting with Lex is the right way to do that. And him being kind of like the inverse Nick Fury, pulling everybody together, I think is the smart play to do that. I think it's usually like that in most iterations, from my understanding. But
you know, the problem with the Legion of Doom is they have to be, the Legion of Doom doesn't work unless they're like the Avengers, right? They have to be introduced in their own movies. They have to all be seen as these like really serious threats. And if you don't have a Flash movie, a Wonder Woman movie, a Batman movie to introduce these guys in, then it's going to be like, I don't know, a lot of catching people up. It'll be like all the heroes plus the Guardians of the Galaxy-esque villain team up that happens in it. Lee, do you think that if we do get Legion of Doom, it's going to be a long time from now?
Yeah, I agree with what Dodd's saying. I do think James Gunn in particular would be the man to do it, just the way that he does ensemble movies really well. So I am not as worried about it, but I think in that vein of, I don't want to see the Legion of Doom just come together because the Justice Society or Justice Gang, Justice League, whatever they're going to go with, came together. I do think it needs to be more of a natural progression. If he did it sort of in the vein he did the Suicide Squad, I wouldn't mind that, where everyone had their moment. But I think with something like the Legion of Doom, I want to feel that connection with the hero, with the villain, before it is the villains and the heroes. I think that it should be a while.
I should note that we did see the Legion of Doom in the CW universe. I mean, we had Damien Dark, Professor Zoom. Who's the third one? Do you guys remember? Oh, yeah, of course. Malcolm.
Malcolm Merlyn.
Malcolm Merlyn,
One thing I will add to that, though, too, is like, I would typically agree with you, especially with DC villains, that they kind of need their own movie introduction, especially some of the big players in it. However, with that said, I would have probably said a lot of similar things about Green Lantern and Hawkgirl and some of the other things that, that James Gunn has really kind of casually introduced in here in ways that actually do feel fitting and fleshed out. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was ways that he could do that with villains as well. I'm
Fair.
still naturally like on your side of it, Ryan. Like I think these guys need their whole they need a whole arc to really understand these characters fully and thoroughly, and to honestly show the audience that they understand these characters fully. Because people got big feelings about DC villains.
Yeah, no, I personally think the best way to introduce DC villains in a movie is if you can have, I don't know, maybe let's think like 3 characters, humans probably, talking about them with some montage clips. And if you can put text on screen that has their powers, I
Hmm.
think that's the best way to possibly explain who these people are. I
Yeah,
can't think of a better way to introduce a series of teen movies.
he's been pretty casual about how he introduces those characters too. So I feel like that's a really good way to get through a lot of like what is normally a lot of storytelling to get to like, oh yeah, he's fast.
Yeah, but I don't want it to be just that. Like, I think you
Sure.
can get away with the Joker like that because the Joker and everybody knows the
Yeah.
Joker. I think when it comes to like other, like Cheetah, right? So what's your gauge?
Mhm.
You scratch people? Like, what's
Right.
that? You know what I mean? Like, no, I think that Circe might be a good one because she's been in Creature Commandos. We've
Yeah.
seen her introduced. But like, I definitely think they need to be presented as a real threat. And if it's just like giving them a cool scene like Mr. Terrific's might work, but otherwise, I don't know. I really want this to happen though. I want this more than I want Darkseid. I love the idea of them facing off against the Legion of Doom. They were some of my favorite Justice League arcs.
Yeah, hands down. I think if I'm looking at like the major just like DC villains out there, the big string pullers that they could have, Darkseid, Anti-Monitor, like Legion of Doom is the one that I would want to see first.
For sure.
All right, well, guys, we got to wrap it up there, but thank you guys so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Dodley, you can find all their links below, and let us know what you think down in the comments. Do you think Lex should be the only villain? Do you like the idea of him in a war suit? Do you miss old billionaire Lex from the John Byrne era? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, or at me on Twitter, Blue Sky Threads, or on our free-to-join Discord server. And if it's your first time here, look, I don't want to put any pressure on you. If you want to subscribe, go ahead. The algorithm doesn't really use that as much. They kind of suppress it for some reason. And, you know, if we like stuff that you like, YouTube will let us find you. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.